The vast council chamber aboard the Galactic Federation's central station was a place where the most powerful leaders in the galaxy gathered to discuss matters of immense importance. Yet today, it was filled with dismissive laughter. The representatives of the Signar Dominion snickered as their ambassador spoke dismissively of Earth's defenses. The Tauros Collective made sarcastic comments about humanity's so-called military, and the Xanar Alliance exchanged amused glances. None of them took Earth's plea for peace seriously. Their fleets were vast, their weapons were advanced, and they had crushed entire civilizations before this tiny planet was nothing more than a footnote in the grand history of the galaxy. Captain Serena Kane stood off to the side, her fists clenched in a mix of anger and frustration. She had been sent to represent Earth in this council meeting, but instead of being treated with respect, she was being humiliated before the galaxy's elite. She had seen this type of condescension before. It was nothing new. Humanity was always underestimated by those who thought themselves superior. Earth's technology was still in its infancy compared to the empires of the stars, but she knew something they didn't, something that would change everything. Her voice cut through the laughter with a sharpness that surprised even her. She addressed the council with unwavering confidence, knowing the words she spoke could determine the future of her home planet. "You may laugh now, but we are not as weak as you think," she began, her tone calm but fierce. "We may not have the luxury of fleets the size of yours or weapons that can burn entire planets, but we have something far more dangerous to you. We have the will to fight, and the ingenuity to make the impossible real." Her words echoed in the room as the laughter slowly faded. For a moment, the council members exchanged uneasy glances. It was clear they hadn't expected such a response from someone they thought of as insignificant, but they quickly recovered. The leader of the Signar Dominion stood and raised an eyebrow. "Are you suggesting that your species could challenge the might of the Federation?" he asked, his voice dripping with skepticism. Serena's gaze didn't falter, her eyes locked onto his. "I'm not suggesting anything, I'm stating a fact," she replied. "You've dismissed us for too long, but that ends now." Her words carried a weight they hadn't anticipated. There was no doubt in her mind that the galaxy had underestimated humanity, but she was about to change that. The council members fell into a tense silence, the atmosphere thick with uncertainty. Some seemed genuinely curious, others appeared annoyed at the interruption of their amusement. But Serena could feel something shifting beneath the surface, something that had not been there before, a flicker of doubt, a crack in the armor of the galactic powers. "I came here to offer peace," she continued. "But if you refuse to listen to reason and continue to see us as nothing more than a speck in your galaxy, then we will be forced to defend ourselves." Her words were bold and defiant, but there was no fear in them. The only thing she could feel now was a deep, burning determination. The council erupted into murmurs of disbelief, but Serena didn't wait for their response. She turned and walked out of the room with her head held high as the doors slid shut behind her. She knew the fight for Earth had only just begun, but she also knew that this was the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. The galaxy had mocked Earth's defenses, but soon they would learn what humanity was truly capable of. The vast council chamber aboard the Galactic Federation's central station was a place where the most powerful leaders in the galaxy gathered to discuss matters of immense importance. Yet today, it was filled with dismissive laughter. The representatives of the Signar Dominion snickered as their ambassador spoke dismissively of Earth's defenses. The Tauros Collective made sarcastic comments about humanity's so-called military, and the Xanar Alliance exchanged amused glances. None of them took Earth's plea for peace seriously. Their fleets were vast, their weapons were advanced, and they had crushed entire civilizations before this tiny planet was nothing more than a footnote in the grand history of the galaxy. Captain Serena Kane stood off to the side, her fists clenched in a mix of anger and frustration. She had been sent to represent Earth in this council meeting, but instead of being treated with respect, she was being humiliated before the galaxy's elite. She had seen this type of condescension before. It was nothing new. Humanity was always underestimated by those who thought themselves superior. Earth's technology was still in its infancy compared to the empires of the stars, but she knew something they didn't, something that would change everything. Her voice cut through the laughter with a sharpness that surprised even her. She addressed the council with unwavering confidence, knowing the words she spoke could determine the future of her home planet. "You may laugh now, but we are not as weak as you think," she began, her tone calm but fierce. "We may not have the luxury of fleets the size of yours or weapons that can burn entire planets, but we have something far more dangerous to you. We have the will to fight, and the ingenuity to make the impossible real." Her words echoed in the room as the laughter slowly faded. For a moment the council members exchanged uneasy glances. It was clear they hadn't expected such a response from someone they thought of as insignificant, but they quickly recovered. The leader of the Signar Dominion stood and raised an eyebrow. "Are you suggesting that your species could challenge the might of the Federation?" he asked, his voice dripping with skepticism. Serena's gaze didn't falter, her eyes locked onto his. "I'm not suggesting anything, I'm stating a fact," she replied. "You've dismissed us for too long, but that ends now." Her words carried a weight they hadn't anticipated. There was no doubt in her mind that the galaxy had underestimated humanity, but she was about to change that. The council members fell into a tense silence, the atmosphere thick with uncertainty. Some seemed genuinely curious, others appeared annoyed at the interruption of their amusement, but Serena could feel something shifting beneath the surface, something that had not been there before, a flicker of doubt, a crack in the armor of the galactic powers. "I came here to offer peace," she continued, "but if you refuse to listen to reason and continue to see us as nothing more than a speck in your galaxy, then we will be forced to defend ourselves." Her words were bold and defiant, but there was no fear in them. The only thing she could feel now was a deep, burning determination. The council erupted into murmurs of disbelief, but Serena didn't wait for their response. She turned and walked out of the room with her head held high as the doors slid shut behind her. She knew the fight for Earth had only just begun, but she also knew that this was the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. The galaxy had mocked Earth's defenses, but soon they would learn what humanity was truly capable of. The Titan slowly took shape against the dark expanse of space. Its hull was a combination of reinforced alloy and experimental materials, never before seen in the galaxy. The engineering was flawless, every detail meticulously planned and constructed to give humanity a fighting chance. Serena Kane stood at the observation window of the Titan's hangar bay, her reflection faintly visible against the gleaming surface of the warship below. Her thoughts were a whirlwind. The ship was more than just a weapon. It was a symbol. It was Earth's answer to the mocking arrogance of the galactic powers. The construction had taken every resource Earth had to offer, every nation contributing what they could spare. Even those once thought to be too small or insignificant had shown their worth. The global division that had once fractured humanity was now a distant memory. All that mattered was survival and the will to protect their home. Serena knew the stakes were high, but she also knew the Titan would change the course of history. Inside the ship, the crew of the Titan trained relentlessly for the coming war. Men and women from every corner of the Earth, soldiers, engineers, scientists, pilots, had all volunteered to serve aboard the ship. Their faces were grim but determined, each one knowing that they weren't just fighting for their own lives. They were fighting for the future of their species. Serena spent hours with her crew, getting to know them, pushing them harder each day. She was no longer just their commander, she was their leader, their guide in this uncharted territory. She watched as the ship's systems were brought online, weapons tested, shields reinforced. The Titan was nearing full operational status, but there was one problem they hadn't anticipated. The alien fleet was already on its way. Scouts from the Signar Dominion had intercepted Earth's communications months ago. They had already dispatched a fleet to annihilate the planet, but the galactic invaders underestimated the speed with which humanity could adapt. The Federation may have laughed, but they hadn't expected Earth to develop a weapon like the Titan. The Titan's first test came sooner than anyone had planned. Serena stood at the command center watching the incoming fleet of alien warships on the large tactical display. The enemy ships were massive and numerous. They entered Earth's solar system in perfect formation, each one bristling with advanced weaponry. But as the ships entered the outer edge of Earth's atmosphere, the Titan powered up. "Commander Kane," came the voice of Lieutenant Mara Atwood, the ship's weapons officer. "All systems are green, and the main cannons are online, ready for your command." Serena turned to the display one last time. The alien ships were closing in fast, their weapons primed for destruction. But the Titan was ready. The time for talk was over. The time for action had come. Prepare to engage. Serena's voice was calm, but filled with an undeniable edge of steel. Target their lead ship and fire when ready. The command was given, and the Titan's massive cannons fired with a deafening roar. The shockwave shook the entire ship as the first salvo tore through the void toward the enemy fleet. The impact was instantaneous. One of the lead ships exploded in a blinding flash of light debris, scattered in every direction. The crew watched in stunned silence as the alien fleet faltered. Direct hit, Lieutenant Atwood said, her voice tinged with disbelief. They weren't prepared for this. Serena's lips curled into a grim smile. No, they weren't, she muttered under her breath. The Titan had made its mark, and the galaxy's rulers would soon realize that Earth was no longer a pawn on the chessboard. It was a player capable of reshaping the entire game. The enemy fleet regrouped, but the Titan was already closing in, ready to strike again. Serena could see the fear beginning to take root in their minds, a doubt that had never been there before. They had underestimated Earth, and now they would pay the price. With the first strike delivered, the battle had only just begun. Serena knew this was their chance, their opportunity to change everything. The Titan was no longer just a ship. It was a declaration that Earth would not be crushed, that humanity would rise, and that the galaxy would never mock them again. The alien fleet was reeling from the Titan's first strike, but their resolve quickly solidified. They were not used to being outgunned, and now they were determined to bring Earth to its knees. Serena stood on the command deck, her eyes locked onto the holographic display, showing the remaining enemy warships regrouping. The Signar Dominion's fleet had suffered a blow, but it was far from defeated. A second wave, larger and more coordinated, was already on its way. "Captain, their reinforcements are arriving," Lieutenant Atwood reported, her voice steady but filled with tension. "They're doubling down on their attack strategy. They won't be caught off guard again." Serena exhaled sharply. The first victory was only a small victory. The true test would come with the next wave, one that could potentially overwhelm the Titan. She glanced at the crew stationed around her, each one aware of what was at stake. Every member of the Titan's crew understood that this was their defining moment. They couldn't afford to let their guard down. "Set course for the outer rim of their formation," Serena ordered. "We're going to take the fight to them. We're not sitting back and letting them come to us." The Titan roared to life as its massive engines hummed, pushing the ship toward the incoming fleet. Every inch of the warship was ready, its weapons primed, its shields charged. As the Titan accelerated into the fray, Serena's mind raced. They had the firepower, but did they have the tactics to counter the full might of the Federation? "Sir," said Ensign Liu Chang, the ship's tactical officer, "I've got a visual on their command ship. It's heavily armored, but vulnerable if we hit it in the right spot. I'm recommending a direct strike to the power core." Serena nodded. The command ship was their target. If they could take it down, they would strike a blow to the entire fleet. But it wouldn't be easy. The Federation's warships were massive and bristling with advanced weaponry. Even the Titan would have to fight hard to breach their defenses. "Let's give them a show of what Earth is capable of," Serena muttered to herself before speaking up. "Prepare all weapons, main cannons, missile pods, and long-range disruptors. On my mark, we hit them with everything we've got." The tension on the bridge was palpable as the Titan closed the distance between it and the alien fleet. The ship's forward shields were glowing a faint blue, ready to absorb the barrage that would surely come their way. The enemy ships moved into attack formation, and the first volley of plasma bolts streaked toward the Titan. "Brace for impact," shouted Serena, her eyes fixed on the screen. The blast rocked the Titan, but its shields held firm, absorbing the energy like a wall of steel. The ship shuddered, but it didn't falter. The Titan pressed forward, its cannons glowing bright as it prepared for its counterstrike. "Firing now," Lieutenant Atwood called out. The Titan's massive cannons erupted in a powerful burst of energy. A concentrated beam of raw power shot toward the alien command ship, tearing through enemy defenses. The first strike hit its shield barrier with a deafening crash. But Serena knew one hit wouldn't be enough. Again, she barked. Focus fire on their weak points. Now. The Titan's guns roared again, and this time, the beam sliced through the alien ship's weakened shields. Explosions erupted across its hull as the power core was hit, sending shockwaves through the entire fleet. The enemy command ship began to break apart, sending debris scattering in every direction. The remaining ships faltered. The Federation fleet had lost its command center, and with it, the heart of their strategy. The Signar Dominion forces hesitated, their once coordinated attack now disjointed as panic spread across their ranks. They hadn't expected the Titan to be this much of a threat. They hadn't expected humanity to be this resourceful, this relentless. Serena's voice rang out across the bridge, cold and commanding. Press the attack. Finish them. The Titan surged forward, relentless in its pursuit of victory. The alien ships scattered as the remaining ships turned tail, retreating into the depths of space, but it was too late. The Titan was on them like a predator closing in on its prey. With each shot fired, the alien forces were pushed further back. Their fleets, once so certain of their dominance, now faced a crushing reality. Earth was not to be underestimated, and the Titan would be their reckoning. The alien fleet was broken, scattered in disarray across the void. The remnants of the Signar Dominion's forces flood into deep space, their once proud armada reduced to a handful of damaged ships limping away. But the battle was far from over. Serena Kane watched the tactical display as the last of the enemy ships disappeared from the sensors. A win, but not a decisive one. They had repelled the invaders, but they knew better than to assume this was the end. Set course for the coordinates of the retreating fleet, Serena ordered. We won't let them regroup. But Lieutenant Atwood's voice cut through the tension. Captain, we've got something bigger coming. The Federation is mobilizing its entire force. Multiple fleets, each one stronger than the last. They're not going to let us get away with this. Serena's eyes narrowed. The victory they'd just earned would only spark the Federation's wrath. They had made a powerful enemy. And now the full might of the galactic empires was about to descend on Earth. The realization hit her like a cold wave. Their enemies would not show mercy. They would strike with everything they had, and they would stop at nothing to wipe Earth off the map. We knew this was coming, Serena replied, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. We've got one shot at this. We have to hit them harder than they've ever been hit before. The crew around her knew what that meant. Earth's victory hadn't been about mere survival. It had been about sending a message. And now that message had been received loud and clear. The Titan was a symbol, a weapon far beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Federation's fleets had underestimated humanity, and in doing so, they had sealed their own fate. They'd never seen anything like Earth's ingenuity and resourcefulness. Now, humanity had to press the advantage, before the Federation could mount a counterattack. As the Titan made its way toward the galactic battlefield, Serena called for a strategy meeting with her senior officers. They needed to make their next move count. General Marcus Drake, Lieutenant Atwood, and Ensign Leo Chang all gathered around the holographic map. Serena's voice was sharp, her decisions made with precision. The Federation is sending its elites. I expect the Signar Dominion and the Xanar Alliance to reinforce the remaining fleets. This is no longer just about stopping a few ships. It's about putting an end to their ability to threaten us ever again, she said, eyes flicking to the projected fleet formations. Drake grunted, his fingers tapping the table nervously. We can't just keep playing defense. We've got to take the fight to them. We need to destroy their command structure, cripple their ability to strategize. Serena nodded. Exactly. We hit their fleets where it hurts, take out their command ships, their flagship vessels. We make them fear us in a way they never thought possible. Earth's forces will take the fight to their doorstep. The plan was set. They would make their way to the heart of Federation space, where the combined fleets of the Dominion, Collective, and Alliance waited in the shadows. It would be a risky mission, but Serena knew the Titan's firepower, the ship's sheer might, was their best hope for turning the tide. Back on the command deck, Serena watched the approaching enemy forces through the viewport. She felt the weight of the moment settle over her. This wasn't just a fight for Earth anymore. It was a fight for every species in the galaxy who had ever been oppressed, a fight for the future of all those who would dare to rise up against tyranny. "They think we're weak," Serena murmured to herself, her gaze fixed on the approaching enemy. "They think they can crush us, but they haven't seen what we're truly capable of." The Titan powered up its engines, its cannons humming with energy. Serena gave the order to engage, and the ship shot forward, cutting through the vast emptiness of space toward the enemy fleets that awaited. There would be no more retreat, no more hesitation. This would be the decisive battle, the moment when humanity would either rise as a true power in the galaxy or be wiped out. As the Titan closed the gap, ready to strike again, the Federation would soon learn the true cost of underestimating humanity. The Titan surged through space, cutting through the black like a blade through water, heading directly into the heart of Federation-controlled space. Serena stood on the command deck, her hands firmly gripping the rail as she watched the star systems pass by in a blur. The weight of their mission was heavy, and the closer they got to the Federation's core, the more she could feel the tension building. Every move they made now would echo across the galaxy. She had no illusions. The Federation's full might would be waiting for them, but she also knew this was humanity's one chance to prove that Earth was not a pawn in their game. It was a player. "Enemy fleet ahead." Lieutenant Atwood's voice cut through the silence, her eyes fixed on the sensor display. "Multiple ships. Looks like they've deployed everything they've got." Serena didn't flinch. "Bring us into firing range. We're not backing down." General Drake, standing next to her, looked over with a grim expression. "They'll try to surround us, Commander. We need to be prepared for that. They'll use their superior numbers to our disadvantage. We'll use their arrogance against them." Serena replied, her eyes cold and focused. "We've beaten them once. We can do it again." The enemy fleet, an overwhelming force composed of several massive capital ships, battle cruisers, and numerous smaller support vessels, was closing in. The Federation was not taking any chances this time. Their flagship, a warship the size of a small moon, was at the center of the formation, bristling with weapons that could level entire continents in seconds. But Serena wasn't intimidated. This time, the Titan was not just going to fight. It was going to dominate. As they approached, the first shots rang out from the Federation fleet, bright beams of energy lancing toward the Titan. The ship rocked under the barrage, but its shields held firm, glowing bright in defiance. "Shields holding steady, Captain," Lieutenant Chang reported from the tactical station. "Our systems are stable, but we've got more ships incoming." Serena's eyes narrowed. "Steady. Wait for my command." She could see the Federation ships moving in to encircle them. They were expecting the Titan to fight defensively, to hold back and try to absorb their firepower. But that's not what Serena had planned. Earth was not about to be pushed into a corner. If they were going to survive, they needed to strike first, to make the enemy think twice about pursuing them any further. "All hands prepare for offensive maneuvers," Serena ordered. "Engage engines to maximum speed. We're breaking through." The Titan's engines roared as it powered forward, the ship lurching into action as the crew braced for what would be their most aggressive move yet. The massive warship sped toward the Federation's formation, drawing fire from every direction. Plasma bolts and laser beams streaked toward them, but the Titan's shields absorbed the hits, its hull groaning under the strain. But it was still moving forward. "Fire main cannons," Serena commanded. The Titan's guns unleashed their devastating energy once more, a series of concentrated beams that sliced through the Federation ships with terrifying precision. The first wave of enemy cruisers was obliterated in an instant, their structures torn apart by the sheer force of the blasts. The Titan didn't stop there. It plowed through the wreckage of the destroyed ships, closing the distance between itself and the enemy's flagship. "Keep up the pressure, all turrets. Fire at will," Lieutenant Atwood shouted, her voice sharp with urgency. The Titan's smaller weapons began firing in rapid succession, pummeling the remaining ships and sending them into disarray. The Federation's fleets had been relying on sheer numbers and brute strength, but they had underestimated the Titan's speed, precision, and the sheer power of its weapons. They were outclassed. The flagship, however, was still intact, looming large ahead. It wasn't going down without a fight. Serena could see the shield flickering, the ship's weapon systems powering up. It was preparing to fire a blast that could vaporize the Titan in one shot. But Serena was ready, braced for impact. She shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos of the bridge. Just as the flagship fired, Serena executed a bold maneuver, sending the Titan into a sharp dive and then pulling hard to the side. The Titan's speed was its greatest asset, its agility allowing it to dodge the most devastating of blows. The massive energy beam from the Federation flagship passed harmlessly by, missing the Titan by mere inches. "Now's our chance," General Drake yelled. "We've got them off balance. Take the shot." Serena didn't hesitate. She gave the command, and the Titan's cannons fired one last time, a concentrated blast that hit the Federation flagship directly in its weak spot. The core detonated in a brilliant explosion, sending shockwaves through space as the massive ship split apart. The Federation fleet watched in horror as their pride, their flagship, was reduced to floating debris. The remaining ships hesitated, their morale shattered. They were no longer fighting an easy victory. They were fighting for survival. Serena knew that this was the moment they'd been waiting for. The Federation was no longer just facing a warship. They were facing a symbol of humanity's defiance. With the flagship destroyed, the remaining enemy ships quickly scattered. The Titan had done the impossible once again. They had struck the heart of the Federation, and they had won. For the first time in galactic history, Earth was no longer just a target. It was a power to be reckoned with. Serena allowed herself a moment to breathe, but she knew this wasn't the end. The Federation would regroup. They would retaliate. The real war had just begun. The battle had been won, but Serena knew that victory on the battlefield was only one part of a much larger war. As the last of the Federation's ships retreated into the black void of space, the Titan floated amidst the wreckage, its hull battered but unbroken. The crew remained vigilant, knowing that the momentary triumph was a brief respite before the storm. "Captain," Lieutenant Atwood called, her voice sharp, "we've picked up an encrypted transmission from the Federation. It's a direct order from the Council." Serena's heart sank. The Federation wasn't one to accept defeat easily, and if they were sending a direct order, it meant they were already planning their next move. She turned to face her senior officers, the weight of the situation settling over her. "Patch it through," she said. The holographic display flickered, and the face of a familiar figure appeared. Veldar, the Signar Dominion's High Commander. His expression was cold and calculating, his eyes betraying no hint of emotion. He was a creature of military strategy, ruthless and unyielding. "Commander Serena Kane," Veldar's voice echoed through the room. "I will admit, your Titan-class ship has exceeded our expectations. But this war is far from over. You've made a grave mistake by challenging the Federation. You may have won this skirmish, but you have no idea what you're up against. We will wipe your planet from the stars." Serena's pulse quickened, but she kept her voice steady. "You can send every fleet you have, Veldar. We're not backing down. This ends with you surrendering, or we'll keep fighting until the last ship is standing." Veldar's lips curled into a slight smile, but there was no humor in it. You overestimate your position. You have caused a momentary inconvenience, but you are nothing more than an irritant to the might of the Federation. This will not end in your favor." With that, the transmission ended, leaving Serena and her crew in silence. The threat was clear. The Federation was not going to stop until Earth was destroyed. But something in her heart refused to believe that the galaxy's mightiest empires could outlast humanity's will to survive. She turned to her officers. "They're underestimating us again. Veldar's confident, but they've made a mistake, one they'll pay for. Do we have time to regroup?" General Drake asked, his brows furrowing as he scanned the tactical screen. "We're still recovering from the last battle, and we don't know what kind of force they'll bring next. We don't have the luxury of time," Serena replied, her voice resolute. "We need to hit them where it hurts. We've already proven they're vulnerable. We take the fight to their homeworlds. We don't wait for them to come to us." Her eyes burned with the same fierce determination that had driven her since the first moment she stepped aboard the Titan. Earth had been underestimated, its strength mocked, its people dismissed. But now they had the upper hand, if only for a brief moment, and Serena knew that they couldn't afford to squander it. The crew nodded in unison, their resolve hardening as they prepared for the next phase of their campaign. They had already proven that they could stand toe-to-toe with the galaxy's greatest warships. But the true challenge was just beginning. "I want full coordination with the Earth resistance factions," Serena continued. "We're going to need every ally we can get. This won't just be about the Titan. It's about all of humanity coming together. If we can't win in space, we fight on the ground. We'll strike at Federation colonies, disrupt their supply lines, do whatever we can to break their war machine." Drake stepped forward, nodding. "And we'll need to prepare for their counteroffensive. The Signar Dominion will come back in force. We need a strategy to deal with their elite troops, their specialized ships." Serena's eyes glinted. "That's where we get creative. We use their arrogance against them. They think we're weak, that we'll fold under pressure. We'll show them just how wrong they are." She felt the weight of the responsibility on her shoulders, but it was no longer a burden. It was a fire that burned within her. Earth's fate rested in her hands, and she wouldn't let her people fall. The Titan's engines hummed back to life, ready for its next mission. The crew filed into their positions, preparing for the most dangerous strike of their lives. It wasn't just about taking down another fleet or defeating a few more ships. It was about making the Federation understand that Earth was not just a planet to be destroyed. It was a force, and they would not bow down. The Titan broke free from the debris field of the destroyed Federation fleet and turned toward its next destination. Serena knew that they would never be able to return to a life of peace, not unless they won this war. The battle for Earth had only just begun, and it would take everything they had to push back against the endless tides of galactic conquest. But for the first time, Serena allowed herself a brief grim smile. They were fighting, and they were winning. And that was more than anyone had ever given humanity credit for. The Titan sliced through the vast emptiness of space, heading toward its next objective. The Federation might have been regrouping, preparing for their final strike, but Serena knew that Earth couldn't afford to wait. If they did, the enemy would only grow stronger, more entrenched. They needed to strike fast, hit them hard, and make them understand that Earth would never fall. The crew on the bridge was silent, but the atmosphere was electric with determination. Each person had been tested in ways they never imagined, but now they were more united than ever. Humanity had come to the edge of the abyss, and they had stepped forward, together. "Captain," Lieutenant Atwood said, her voice sharp, "we've received word from the Resistance. They've successfully disabled a Federation supply convoy in the crater system. We've got an opening to hit their rear flank." Serena's eyes sparkled with recognition. "Perfect. The Federation will be spread thin, and if we take down their supply lines, we can cripple their ability to reinforce. Prepare for the jump. We're hitting them before they can react." General Drake stepped forward, his voice measured. "If we're successful, We could delay their entire counteroffensive, but we need to act fast. The moment they regroup, they'll be coming for Earth with everything they have." Serena nodded, her expression resolute. "We'll give them no time. We'll hit them hard enough that they'll think twice before coming back for more. Prepare all weapon systems. I want a full strike on their central command ship. That's where they'll be coordinating their final push." The Titan's engines hummed as it entered the jump corridor, the vast distance between them and the Federation's headquarters shrinking with each passing second. The crew was ready for what would be their boldest attack yet, an all-out assault on the heart of the Federation's remaining forces. As they neared their target, the Federation's defenses lit up like a deadly constellation. Hundreds of ships formed a massive defensive perimeter around their central command vessel, a monolithic warship known as the Aegis. It was an enormous fortress in space, armed to the teeth, and seemingly impenetrable. But Serena wasn't deterred. This was their chance to deliver the final blow. "Captain," Ensign Chang warned, "we've detected a large-scale energy buildup in the Aegis. They're preparing for a final assault. This could be their last push before retreating." Serena's gaze hardened. They want to end it all in one strike, but they're going to learn just how wrong they are. With a sharp command, the Titan broke from its jump path and dove toward the enemy fleet. The Federation ships immediately began to fire, massive plasma blasts streaking toward them. But the Titan was faster, more agile, dodging and weaving through the incoming fire. It was no longer just a warship. It was humanity's will, flying through the cosmos, refusing to surrender. The Titan's cannons roared in unison, each shot a declaration of defiance. One by one, enemy ships were torn apart, their hulls cracking under the intense firepower. The Aegis was directly in their sights now, and Serena knew that their victory would hinge on one shot. "Focus fire on the Aegis," she commanded, her voice calm despite the chaos unfolding around them. "Take down their shields. We're ending this today." The Titan's main guns fired, a massive beam of energy that slammed into the Aegis's shields, causing them to flicker and crack. The Federation flagship returned fire, sending a barrage of death toward the Titan. But the Titan was ready. Its advanced shields absorbed the blast, holding firm as they advanced. "Lock on to their power core. We take that out, and the entire fleet falls apart," Serena ordered. With a final, precise strike, the Titan's cannons unleashed everything they had left. The beam struck the heart of the Aegis, tearing through its defenses and into the ship's core. There was a deafening explosion, and the flagship crumbled into fiery debris, its massive form disintegrating into nothingness. For a moment, everything was still. Then, the Federation fleet began to break apart. Without their command ship, they were leaderless, scattered, and weak. The remaining ships turned and fled, retreating into the depths of space. Serena let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. The battle was over. The Federation had been defeated. Earth had won. The crew erupted into cheers, but Serena remained calm, her eyes scanning the now quiet battlefield. There was no time for celebration. Not yet. They had won this war, but the fight for the future of Earth was far from over. The Federation might be in ruins, but there were others who had watched, waiting for their chance to strike. "Prepare for post-battle analysis," Serena said, her voice low but firm. "We've taken down one enemy, but the galaxy won't forget us. We'll be ready for whatever comes next." The Titan's engines hummed once again as it turned toward Earth, its mission complete. For now, Serena stood tall, the weight of their victory settling over her, knowing that humanity had done what no one thought possible. They had survived, and now they were ready for whatever the future would bring.